221. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to
Let's
start?
do the election stuff. You can't go anywhere without talking.
Where do you want to start with the election? There's been so much. You got the Poilievre policy proposals. We got China threatening to capture people. We got Carney in front of a podium today for the first time, full body shot that I saw. He can't be any taller than 5'4". All these sorts.
You know
of
how you can find
stories.
out how tall he really is? The debate that took place with all the liberal leaders. There's some pictures about with all four of them there. Frank Baylis is the tallest by far, but Chrystia Freeland is not very tall, right?
No, she's short.
So try to compare Carney's height with hers.
He's the same height as her. He's the same height as her.
Really? As according to the pictures, and she was probably wearing high heels too, right? Something to like elevate her, I would imagine.
Trying to look here. Karina Gold looks pretty tall.
She's a little bit taller. I'll guess she's like 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", somewhere around there. But Frank Baylis, I'm going to guess is probably like 6'1". He seems like a taller dude. Maybe I'm wrong with everything. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet he's pretty tall. This is a hilarious picture. Look at this. This is so funny. It's amazing to me that these guys like try and pass this off as journalism when everyone knows exactly what's happening in this photo. Let me just share it here. And I'm not that tall. Like I'm 5'9" on a good day. So, I'm not some kind of like anti-short, commentator, but I can't even see it. Why can't I see it?
That's okay. We could just continue.
Yeah, too bad. But there's a picture here, like Chrystia Freeland, Carney, Baylis, and Gold. And Carney looks the tallest. They got them all four of them standing together, and Carney looks the tallest. I lost my camera. Oh my God, what happened to my camera?
Either way, I'll try to.
I'll figure
you're still there at least.
Yeah, do your story.
So anyways, Canada decided this past week to cut off $43 million in rebates to Tesla and this is going to stop them from getting further access to the program in the future. And this is all in response due to the tariffs that Donald Trump has imposed on Canada and also Elon Musk's association with the president. And this comes after there was huge surge of sales. Gosh, Joni's gone, so it's just me by myself. Either way, Tesla had a huge surge in sales in January 2025. Welcome back, Joey. And reports suggested that over 8,600 Tesla vehicles were sold in a very short period of time, around 3 days, across only four stores. So 8,600 vehicles sold in 3 days in 4 stores. And this volume raised suspicion with the government of Canada. And so with that, the Transport Minister, Chrystia Freeland, decided to announce that the government is freezing the rebate payments and launching an investigation into these claims to ensure their validity. And no payments will be made until the government is confident that the claims are legitimate. And Tesla has also been barred from participating in future federal EV rebate programs indefinitely.
Insane. That's insane.
So to go through this all, we had also provinces that were also doing stuff against Tesla products. Like we had British Columbia stopping the incentives for Tesla home chargers, for example, like the rebate program. Okay, Tesla, say what you want about electric cars in general, but Tesla probably is the gold standard of electric cars.
For sure.
You can say what you want for fit and finishes. Of the only 3 that I've dealt with in Teslas, they were all very good, and the owners absolutely love them. But that's a very small sample size, so we'll keep that at that. So if you're going to make the Teslas more expensive to buy for an end consumer, like the end user, what options do they have? It's going to be the other products that aren't as good. Also, keep in mind, in Canada, sometime in the middle of next decade, I think 2035, I could be wrong, the sale of new cars, there's going to be a ban on internal combustion engines in those new cars. Only EVs are. So now you have only EVs for new cars that are going to be sold sometime middle of next decade. And if this continues, Tesla is not going to be able to participate in these rebate programs. So their cars are going to cost more. So you're left with dealing with the others. Like, really? You know what I mean? Like, is this really a good move for the consumer in the end? Isn't Elon Musk a Canadian too?
Yeah, there's some story there.
I don't know.
It hurts consumers. And like, Len, are we serious about the climate goals? If we're serious about the climate goals, then why are we taking away the subsidies for the best EV, the most popular EV, the one that has the most cultural inertia? At least it did before this whole, elbows up nonsense. But, like, how do you say to people who think this stuff is a good idea. I'm not sure that there's anything you could say to them, right? It's sort of like talking to a wall.
It's just the narrative. Like, when Carney, I mean, it's a kind of similar topic, but remember when Mark Carney went to Europe shortly after he was sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada?
Yes. Yeah.
It was speculated that the trip, his jet consumed 250,000 liters of jet fuel.
Yeah.
I did the math. And for my one car to use 250,000 liters of diesel, which is very close to jet fuel, I would have gone, and I can't think this is right, I would have gone to the moon and back 7 times. 7 fucking to the moon and back, Joey.
Yeah.
And for that one trip to Europe, like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, I think you have the ideas there, but there's no participation in the talk, really. You know what I mean? Like, you say what you want, but really it's not being done, which is too bad. Who's in the pay in the end is everybody.
Yeah.
And
Boomer noting that the subsidies have been done for a while. That is true. The thing that I think bothers me about the Tesla, singling out Tesla is a political virtue signal, as some of you guys are noting in the chat. Think about the stuff this guy has done in the last, 2 years, right? What has he done that has not been fantastic for society and for the species? He bought Twitter and saved it from becoming this, liberal echo chamber of nonsense where every consenting opinion is met with either a ban, a community note, employment termination, or some combination of the three. He obviously continues to build out Tesla while he's doing Twitter. Like, this guy is stretched so thin. He gets Trump elected in the States, you could argue. I think that he played a major role in that. And then, as if that's not enough, since the election, he's also found tons of fraud in the American Social Security system. Most of it detailed yesterday in a town hall he did, I think, in Wisconsin. And then, Len, as if the guy is not doing enough for you, he also rescues some astronauts stuck on this International Space Station because NASA is so incompetent and can't do it.
it's Boeing. Boeing is,
whatever.
Their affiliation with Boeing. And
whatever. NASA is the government agency that told Elon he wasn't allowed to do it. Biden told him he wasn't allowed to do it. That's what Elon says. It's hard for me not to believe that that's the case, given the partisanship and insanity that we've seen since Trump took over, coming from the past administration.
They were still training the new pilot.
Yeah.
That for Boeing to go up there.
Yeah,
maybe that's why
Boeing brought in some temporary foreign workers like WestJet is. Is that that's
yeah? So once they were brought up to speed, at least mostly, then they give them the keys, and there you go.
They refused to go up there until their 9 grandparents were also allowed to come over and enjoy. Fuck. And people hate this guy. Like, for what? For what? Like, it's unbelievable. The stuff that I hear and see. It's mind boggling to me.
And now we have the polls. I'm going to talk briefly about that.
Let's talk about them. I'm going to, oh my God, my stupid camera. Yeah. It's hilarious how sensitive this
Funny
is.
Because I was having an issue before the show.
That's right.
And now you're having one. So I'm wondering if it's just a StreamYard thing and not a hardware.
Yeah, it could be. Because I didn't do anything there. I didn't plug anything back in. I just reset it. But anyway, let's talk about the polling in Canada. Everyone talking, I'll say that I had a family get together on the weekend. I have some family that are entrepreneurs. I have some family that work in tech. I have some family that are young, some family that are old, men, women, you name it, all fairly well off. And every single person said basically the same thing to me, that Carney is just the right man for the moment. And this is the guy that we need to hire. We need to vote him in, and he's got to be the guy who carries us over the finish line. So, when you look at the polls, another thing you hear from people, certainly I heard this on the weekend, I'm sure you guys have heard it too. When you look at the polls, you start to see that there's just huge gap building everywhere, not just in Canadian polling, but also on Polymarket, on other betting markets. BetMGM, Mark pointed out to us a couple of days ago, also the same. The gap is widening. It's not just like it's, 55-45. It's 70 Carney, percent chance to win in some places. 338, Len said to me before the show, has Carney at a 98% chance to win, down from 99%, but still basically an insurmountable probabilistic lead. Let's take a look at the polls that are being conducted. So here's a screenshot from Ryan something or other. I forget the guy's.
Jarriston?
Jarriston. From Nick Nanos. Nanos, obviously, one of the more popular pollsters. Nick Nanos not just polling, by the way. He goes on these channels and talks about how good his polling is and how concerned the conservatives should be, blah, blah, blah. You guys have seen this guy all over the place. He's about 60 years old. So he's average liberal voter, probably. In the survey, they asked only 158 18 to 34-year-olds versus 733 55 and up. So that's basically a 4X by my count. And even the 35 to 54 age group only had 291 people asked. So all the age groups that you would expect to be voting for the conservatives, not necessarily because the conservatives are the party, that all these people vote for, but because these people are the ones who've been the most hard done by the liberal policies of the last 10 years. They're not being asked in some of these polls.
Go back to that.
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
I think I have a theory behind this.
Sure.
It could be that the people that are being asked, the younger folks, they're just not answering. I get asked, I'm not going to say, I'm going to just call myself with the young. I don't answer any of the polls that come to me just because I don't care to. And if you're older and you're getting it, you're probably more likely to answer it. So like they're asking, whatever amount of people, what did they say? 1,200 and it's 85 people. So just that's the way it is. And this could also be reflective of the people that are interested in politics. So older people tend to vote more often than, say, their younger counterpart. So this is just reflective of how involved they are in politics and how likely they are to vote. So I understand, it's skewed in terms of having more people older reply to this, but more people that are older are going to vote on average.
Yeah, so that's fine. But is it a 4X as likely? Like we saw what just happened in America, right? Like Americans have a similar split demographic and support-wise between conservatives and liberals. And they were completely outgunned at the ballot box by the conservatives. Young, working age men and women, minorities, whites, they did better in every demographic than the polling indicated.
So here we go. So for the 2015 and 2019 elections in Canada, this is from Elections Canada website. The voter turnout for people that are like less than 34, it's around 57% or lower.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes up to like, if you're 65 and to 74, it's almost 80%. That's a huge difference.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Like, and that's just by percentage.
What election was that?
It's taking 2015 and 2019.
So that was then before COVID, before mass immigration, before the inflation wave, before all this other nonsense happened in the last 5 years. Like it's a different world, totally different world now.
It may be, but people that are older that are vested, they have a vested interest, they're going to continually do what they want to do and vote the way that they think is best for them. They've always voted, so they'll continually vote. They know what to do. They've done this before. They'll just do it again. So you're dealing with a population that is mobilized, organized, and willing to vote. And they've always have been.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I'm just cruising Nanos' website here. There's no. The thing that drives me nuts here is that it would be easy for Nick to say that if I look at the sampling we're doing in our polling, we are way oversampling liberal boomers in every poll. And he could also just as easily say, look, we're not doing it on purpose. We're actually just trying to call people. And to your point, Len, these are the people who answer. And so the polling is skewed. Take that with a grain of salt, change your margin of error, whatever. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he goes on TV and says that his polling is great and it's the best available and blah, blah, blah. Here's an example, by the way, of an Angus Reid poll question that someone had emailed to them. I'll read it for the people listening on audio. It says, it's about from Mark Carney and the Liberals. Which of the following statements comes closest to your own view on why people should vote Liberal in the next election, even if none is exactly right? Here's the first option. Pierre Poilievre is a radical extremist who would risk the rights of Canadians. We cannot let him win and become prime minister. The only way to stop them is to vote for Mark Carney and the Liberals. They're the only ones high enough in the polls to stop the Conservatives. Second option, Pierre Poilievre would bow down to Trump and let him walk all over Canada. He wants to privatize our healthcare system to be more like for-profit American care. He wants you to pay for your healthcare, We have to stop him at any cost. The Liberals are best placed to challenge him. Mark Carney is the best guy to stand up to Trump. And then the two other options are none of the above or don't know, not sure. Like that's not sane polling, and that's not professional polling in any sense of the word. There's a guy I watched during the American elections, People's Pundit, Rich Barris, his name is. You know, he's a Republican, but I got to be honest with you, the sampling and polling and questions that he puts together are really good. They're very clean and not they're not leading questions like these ones are and leading answers. And you know, this is kind of the reason people don't trust polls is not because every poll is fake, but it is because some polls are slanted. Like that Angus Reid poll. There's no matter what the question is, those two answers are not proper polling answers. And in Nanos's case, he's the revered polling contractor. By the way, standing offers, you know, with multiple governments, including the federal government, Ontario government, tons of different agencies, all on his website. You can go there and look. This is the guy people go to, and he's oversampling by 4 times, and not noting it, not mentioning it, not saying, you know, Len, if the reason is because he thinks more people will vote, he should say that, right? But I can't find him saying that anywhere. And I think that really, I've said on the show that I thought Carney had a chance to win. I still think he does, but this gives me a little bit of hope that it's at least going to be a closer race than Poilievre thinks or Nick Nanos thinks or whatever. But I think the debates are still going to be immensely important, much more important than they've been in years past. And I do think that the more Carney speaks, the more he shows he feels, as the kids would say, some type of way about the reporters and the questions he's getting from them. So make it that.
Who's more likely to get a soundbite out of one of these debates? Because the debates now are all going to be
Poilievre, so for sure.
I 100%
he's better
agree.
at that. He's better at that.
So he's probably going to be trained the best for that, given the right coaching and all that stuff, than any other of the candidates. And that's what I think they're going to try to achieve, is try to get the best sound bites.
The French language debate too will be brutal for Carney.
He'll be able to defend himself.
Blanchette, he won't be able to. He can't.
No, he didn't finish. Let me finish.
Okay,
he'll be able to defend himself in the point where he can start his argument. It's when somebody else presents him with something, then it's going to be a challenge for him to do so. Like if he's going to start the dialogue, he'll be able to do it because he's going to have that rehearsed, practice written out in front of him. He just has to follow it. But then once it goes off that script, and once you have to try to compute in your head what you have to say in French in a different language, a language you don't tend to speak very often for the majority of his life, then it becomes problematic for him. And that's where it's going to be a challenge for him. And
I think Poilievre, if Poilievre was smart, I said this about Trump and Kamala too. Like there's a there's a high risk, high reward play you could make. You know, when Trump and Kamala were debating trade deficits, and Kamala was rhyming off, like you said, there's kind of a rote memorization moment for her where she was repeating some stats and repeating some reasons and repeating some figures. If I was Trump, I would have just said, can you describe to me what a trade deficit is and why it's bad for, you know, the U.S. economy, and just see what she does, right? See if she flounders, flusters, whatever. I think Poilievre's got an opportunity to do the same thing in the French language debates. Like, can you speak at a speed that doesn't make you seem like you're trying to overwhelm him, but overwhelm him anyways? And like those debates are long, 2 hours, I think they're scheduled for. So can you do that for 2 hours? And there's a guy in the chat saying Carney said he wouldn't do the French debates. It's not what he said. There's 2 French debates. One is a national debate that CBC or CTV or whatever will host. The debate he's not doing is the TVA, the French language debate on the Quebec network. He's not going to do that one. But there will still be 2 debates, one English language, one French language.
So it was televised. Apparently they had to pony up $70,000 in order to participate in
each candidate to help with the production costs. Yeah, it's a small network. It's just something that Quebecers do.
And then Poilievre said he'll give the money. He'll pay the
He'll pay the fee.
$70,000.
Yeah, he'll pay the fee. And Carney's excuse was that the Green Party has 2 leaders and they're not both invited and blah, blah, blah.
Wait. I didn't know this. That's why they have photos of 2 people when they're talking.
The guy plus Elizabeth May. Yeah.
Is it like
Liz is unhinged. I'm not saying she's, everyone says she's drunk up there. I'm not 100% sure of that, but she certainly is a bit of a loose cannon these days. So
I'm shocked. I didn't.
Yeah. Well, then the NDP can't pay for Carney's entrance fee. I'll tell you that. They don't have the money. Jagmeet Singh took an uncomfortable question last week. I was listening to it after we recorded. Some reporter asked him, we're finishing up here in Thunder Bay. We're getting on a bus to go to Toronto instead of a plane. Like, are you worried that you're not going to be in enough campaign stops? And why are you not taking a plane? Right? He wants the guy to basically say, like, we have no money.
I don't know why. And he has to be taking a plane to go because he was in the West Coast.
They're getting on a bus together.
They are, but it's got to be just him hopping on an Air Canada flight like everybody else, and just right. Like, isn't he not?
Where's the pictures? Where's the pictures?
I haven't seen any, but it makes sense that he should, because granted he'll leave his staff behind, but he's got a whole new set of staff somewhere where he's landing, and then he could pick up him with a Maserati and go from there and check it.
You're probably right. Like, yeah. I just want people to realize that because of the election campaign, we've been spared Jagmeet Singh making a meme about the morning routine, made famous by that black guy, Ashton Hall, I think his name is. He's like dipping his face in the cucumber water or whatever.
I don't know that one.
It's great. You got to find it. I bet you your daughter has seen the meme. I bet you she's
probably,
seen it.
Yeah. Now with the way NDP is polling, they're dangerously entering a territory where they're not going to have official party status. And that impacts them in a number of different ways. And two big ones is they're not going to get funding, a lot of funding that is available to parties when
Can you expand on that? Because I didn't know that before you told me that a few months ago.
At least the way it used to be. I'm not sure if it is, but every vote that you cast, a little portion of that goes to the party that you vote for. I believe that's the case. You also get access to like the libraries of parliament and shit like that, where you get access to the staffers to help prep you for questions in question period and stuff like that. And then also you get far less questions to ask in question period. It's like you're kind of an independent type thing. And then so you don't get the ability to ask the questions. So you get very little airtime. So it really hurts if they don't get official party status. They could be in a territory where they may want to start asking if they can merge with some other party. But the only other party they could potentially want to merge with would be the Liberal Party. If the Liberal Party scores a majority outright without any support whatsoever, they're in a driver's seat. And why would they want to absolve another party and all the problems that could potentially come along with that?
Totally agree. What do you think the focus should be for the Conservatives for the next 2 weeks? They've so far basically tried to avoid talking about Trump, instead offering up these policy positions, neither of which I really like. I've taken some criticism for that, but the first is the TFSA top up, right? $5,000 extra. We may have talked about this last week. I don't remember when this came out, but $5,000 extra.
No, it came up in the past week. We didn't talk about it. This week issue.
So let's talk about it then, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts. The TFSA top up, where you get $5,000 extra. I don't know if it's per year or total on your TFSA contributions. So you can give about $7,200 a year, I think, something like that.
They lowered it a little bit, I thought. I don't know what it is,
but it changes every year. So you get the number at the beginning of the year, and you can put that money in tax free, and the profits are tax free too. But there's a cap. And so Poilievre is proposing we raise the cap so long as that extra $5,000 goes into Canadian companies. I have two problems with this. Number one is that no one has $5,000 extra dollars. Okay. Number two is that I view this as akin to capital controls, honestly. And if the only way you're allowed to get out of a sinking ship where the holes in the boat are being put there by the government and policy, if the only way you're allowed to get off the sinking ship is to try and get into Canadian companies that are underperforming, I tweeted this out last week. The S&P since 2005, is like a 4x in America, and the TSX is like, a quarter of that or something of that nature. I forget exactly what the numbers were, but it's a massive underperformance just in nominal terms. When you start talking about real terms and take into account the currency, cost of living, and things like this, like, you're getting nuked if you're in the Toronto Exchange and not in the American S&P. And the idea that you should have to, I don't want to keep saying have to, because you're not being forced, but the idea that if you want to try and escape the sinking ship, the currency, that the only way to do so is to invest in Canadian companies who otherwise would never get your money, and so will be artificially inflated in terms of valuation. It's just not it doesn't sit right with me, and I don't think it should sit right with anybody. The second policy he proposed is that you'd be exempt from capital gains if you sell assets. That's equities, homes, businesses, it sounds like, as long as you invest the profits. Is it the profits or the proceeds? Might be everything. So not just I guess it'd be hard to put profits
changes
on a
nothing.
business. You're right. And so like you have to put it back into Canada again. Like you're being not forced, but heavily incentivized, because you can't stay in cash. They know you can't stay in cash, and they know you don't want to pay tax. So your options are either invest in shitty Canadian companies with the proceeds, or build businesses in Canada, heavily regulated, underperforming, not the best environment, or pay some unknown amount of tax on your proceeds of your sale. These are capital controls. You may not like that. And it's funny, I just had this conversation with my mother-in-law a few weeks ago about my daughter and starting a RESP for her. A lot of my family's asking, can we put into an RESP, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not going to start an RESP. I have no interest in that. Why? It can't be all Bitcoin. I said, number one, it can be all Bitcoin for sure. But the reason I'm not starting an RESP is not because I want to save all in Bitcoin. The reason is because I don't want anyone telling me what I can and can't use that money for in 20 years. And I said, this is weeks ago, and my mother-in-law admitted as much to my wife. I think they talked about it a little while ago, that she thought I might actually be right, even though she disagreed at first. The idea that they have this money locked up and you can't get it unless you pay taxes as though it's income, unless you use it for what they want you to use it for. And there's a chance that they could use it to prop up Canadian institutions, Canadian schools, Canadian post-secondary, Canadian whatever, to artificially inflate balance sheets or successes or whatever. And you have to send your kids to a school that otherwise would never not only get your money, but certainly wouldn't get your children. It's all starting to happen, is it not? Am I dreaming this? And this is from the Conservative Party. If you don't think that the Liberals will do something similar, we'll make sure that your TFSA is carbon neutral, or that you can't invest in anything crypto adjacent, or, you only get to use your TFSA if you have an electric car or whatever. Like, these are obvious incentives. And anyone who thinks this is a bridge too far, like, you haven't been paying attention. This is going to happen sooner than you guys realize. And by the time it happens, you're not going to know. And I said, I'm looking forward to Easter. It'll be after the election, talking to, family and friends about what went wrong for Carney and what went wrong for Poilievre, depending on who loses. But I think Poilievre is out to lunch on some of these ideas, completely out to lunch. And his campaign needs to reassess. I believe some of the stories I'm hearing about internal turmoil in that camp, because I can't imagine that a competent set of, group of people, policy advisors, comes up with these two ideas. They're both just piss poor. And we can talk about Carney's piss poor idea from today later on, but I want to hear what you think.
Okay, well, so what do you do? So what are the options available to you being a Canadian, Joey? What do you do?
The funniest thing is that you guys don't realize me and Len already had this exact conversation today at work. Identical conversation. What did I say? I said, you don't have a choice. You got to vote for one of these guys probably if you want your vote to count for anything.
No, and then you're voting harder at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so
what do you do? Joey?
Nothing. You have to just opt out. You got to opt out.
Wonderful. Wonderful. See, all roads lead to Len. And here's another example of that right there. So that is
Easter,
it.
Is Easter 420? I thought Easter was I thought it was 420.
It's a late one this year.
I don't know.
So it's going to be, it sounds like 420 sounds right, but it's going to be just before the election, which obviously makes sense because the election is April 28th. But
nice. So I'll get to go before the election. Wow. I will be definitely planting some flags after a couple of years. I promise
with
you
all
that.
this being said, what options do you have? Like, there's
As
nothing out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like so to go back, you have to prep for the afterlife, not for your death, but the afterlife of being outside of here.
Yeah. I
got
to stop you here because the chat is saying stuff that is driving me fucking crazy. The TFSA is not restricted to Canadian investments, but the TFSA top up is. So you can put your 7,000 in, but if you want to go above your 7,000, it has to be Canadian investments. And by the way, people saying BTCC, IBIT, no, it's a predetermined equity basket set by the Conservative government. That is what is in the policy position. It's on their website. If you guys think, that they're going to allow you to buy Bitcoin ETFs as part of a Canada first strategy, you're
That's just
fucking
paper
stupid.
Bitcoin.
You're fucking stupid. I hate to say that because everyone from Brad Mills to people I've never heard of saying, oh, we can just buy Bitcoin ETFs. No fucking chance are you going to be allowed to do that. No fucking chance.
Even if you do it, how could we could go out there and say a paper Bitcoin is something we want to buy? Like, Jesus Christ, we're fucking Bitcoiners, right?
We understand the value. You can buy this stuff. You can buy Bitcoin in your TFSA. I'm not disputing that. The
ain't
ETFs,
Bitcoin, man.
The ETFs in your TFSA. I'm saying I'm talking to people in the chat now. I hate when I do this, but like you can do that. But I'm saying directionally, what you are seeing is that as a first salvo, okay, it's not like 10% of your TFSA limit has to be in Canadian equities. It's not like 20% of your TFSA limit has to be in Canadian equities. The first salvo in real terms is your limit's going from 7,000 to 12,000, and almost half of it has to be in Canadian equities. 5,000 of the 12,000 is Canadian only, or you don't get it. That's the first step. The second step is not going to be less severe than that. The second step is not going to be less forgiving than that. The second step is not going to be, well, we're going to go backwards and let you do 20% or 30%. We're going to allow Bitcoin. We're going to allow Bitcoin ETFs in that extra 5,000 just because the issuer is Canadian. No chance. No chance. It's going to be auto manufacturers, oil companies, telcos, who knows what else, grocery stores. All the companies, by the way, that 2 years ago were price gouging you are going to be forced investment outcomes for you. That's what's going to happen. And the idea that this is anything but capital controls, and people are like, it's not capital controls. They're not forcing you. 50% of your limit, close to 50% of your limit, 5 out of 12 is brutal. Brutal. The next step is going to be more severe. I promise you that. And they're not going to keep raising the limits. They're going to keep sliding the maximums. That's what's going to happen.
On a personal level, are you still putting any money in ATFSA or ARSP?
Barely.
So that number has been going down percentage-wise over time, right? Yeah,
big time. I told you once I bought this house, like I like having a TFSA if for no other reason than because I don't want to save my emergency fund all in cash. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to have an emergency fund all in cash.
that's
fair. but like
you're gonna come a point in time it's gonna be zero, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So fucking right. Yeah. See, it don't take long to get to this point. Everybody's gonna get there.
And even if it's not a zero, it's not going to be up to you to where it goes. And like, you can imagine a situation where you're forced to invest in Canadian companies to preserve your tax efficiencies. In that world, what are those Canadian companies in terms of quality? How are they? Terrible. How's the currency? Terrible. How's the development environment here? Terrible.
You're almost there. It don't matter if it's good or bad. It's the fact you're putting your money in. Remember that fucking guy in the UK?
Yeah, it's not yours. Yeah, it's not yours. As soon as you give it there, yeah,
right.
There's all kinds of leashes and collars. Yeah,
you may have ownership into a particular company, but how do you get your money out of that? Like, how do you go somewhere and say, I have X shares in something, I want to get, no, man.
Yeah.
you got to go through some brokerage house and I totally
agree.
So fuck that shit, man. Like, it makes so much sense. Like, once everybody figures out fucking Bitcoin, and you could hold on to it. You could verify it. You could send it from yourself. You rely on nobody. What a fucking liberating way of dealing with money. And somebody can't take it from you. You could send it. Nobody could stop you from sending it out. And there's a limited supply. Like, it just gets better and better and better. Like, fuck, I can't believe people. I'm going to buy some more after the show. Like, how can we not?
What do you think about Carney's policy proposals? The 1% tax cut, like, that's pretty insignificant.
No. The housing thing. Yeah. The housing is. I want to just talk quickly about this, because there was that housing announcement that came up today, and they're trying to, or at least the intention is to build a bunch of homes, because there's a deficit in terms of places for people to live, and they still want to bring people to Canada. They're always going to want to bring people to Canada because we're an older population. We don't have enough kids to sustain ourselves and so forth, right? So Uh, one thing that was noticed on Discord, some guy named Flux, I'm going to give you some credit here, Flux, and he posted this, that people are now selling concrete culvert pipes to live in. And he showed it. It was in Facebook. And I guess it's an ad. Fat pipe DIY cabins, $7,000, where you can convert these to a cabin. You get the 13-foot length, 10-inch thick wall reinforced. He says, why not he? It's the ad go, why go fat pipe? Thermal mass plus constant temp. So basically, you could even attach 2 pipes. You could have a cabin in front. You could have root cellar, all this shit. Connect 3 to 6 pipes. Have a 2-house type deal. Wonderful. Fucking people are going to be living in culverts, Joey. The people are going to go out there and find one that's under a fucking the ground. Nobody's taking advantage of that. I'm going to squat there, baby. That's mine. That's my culvert. Fuck you. Like, this is what we're at. Yeah. This is the point where people are looking at fucking culverts as a way to live. It's funny, but it's not funny, if you know what I mean. And that's the situation where
it's not funny at all. I mean, look at the proposal from Carney on the housing thing. It's impossible. It can't be done. That they're going to build 500,000 houses, become a developer, and put these things up everywhere. I thought it was interesting that Carney was saying that when he made the proposal today, that the houses are going to be, cheap to build, sustainably built, and fast to put up. We're going to remove all these barriers. What he didn't mention is whether or not the homes are going to be of any quality, modular, probably small. We had more births on here, Dan Hess, some time ago, and he noted that the problem that Canada has isn't actually housing, it's houses with backyards to fix your population problem, right? You need that. And are we going to build 500,000 houses while also allowing 500,000 new immigrants every year? I don't know. You could say that maybe we are, maybe we aren't. Obviously, Carney brought on Wiseman as his campaign chair, Century Initiative founder, raised, by the way, last week, sort of quietly, the number of dependents that any new immigrant could bring in. So if you're, a permanent resident, you can bring in, I think that it's up to 9 people now. Is that the number? I forget. But, if you have dependents, grandparents, parents, whatever, you can bring them over as well at a clip that was higher. The Liberal government just actually undid some of that. They lowered that limit several months ago, and now it's back to where it was. So you got to ask yourself, is 500,000 enough? It is if you want to live in the pod and eat the bugs. But if you want a decent life with kids, a backyard, a dog, I don't know, going to see a movie on Friday night, like these things are escaping quickly. Society's reaching the point now where, I barely leave my neighborhood now because there's just no point. Like what is waiting for me in Hamilton at large that is going to be more pleasant than what's in my neighborhood? Nothing. I go to the gym at a certain time. I do leisurely activities at certain times, at certain places. It takes a lot to convince me to go somewhere else to do any of these things at any other time because it's not only unpleasant, but it's become dangerous in some parts of town that weren't dangerous years ago. Places like Hess Village, probably has multiple stabbings and murders every year. I used to party there all the time when I was 19 and 20. It's where I cut my teeth as a young man. What is the plan for young men now? I don't know. I'm a little out in the weeds here, but reel me back in, Len. What do you think of the housing proposal?
It's difficult for anybody to get a house. And say, for example, 416, how expensive it is to find a home for, say, 2 people working and me. Like it's so much so that they had to raise the salaries of the counselors 25%. They're probably feeling the pinch.
Unreal. We didn't even touch that story. I can't believe we didn't do that one.
Oh, we can touch it.
Yeah.
Like
they don't get yearly raises, by the way. But still, 25 is a lot. That's an unpalatable number.
Who gave them that? They voted for themselves. Could you imagine? Like, you have the ability. It's like your boss got.
Did you see what the vote was?
Yeah,
15-8. It wasn't even unanimous. So some of them are starting to have some self-awareness, probably getting looks in the street from people.
So Olivia Chow, she abstained from voting too, and I am old enough to remember, and it was not too long ago. Like now, it's $170,000. That's the base salary for a city councilor in Toronto. I remember when it was 5 figures. Like it was a job, right? Like it was decent, well-paying job, but it was a job. Now, like 100. I mean,
well, you saw the rationale, I'm sure, from Chow and the city councilors. We need to continue to raise wages to attract the best and brightest people for these jobs. Like, well, are you attracting the best and brightest right now? Chow certainly is not the best or the brightest. I don't know about the rest of the councilors, but
it's a systemic problem because Mississauga, adjacent to Toronto, their councilors, they're earning $173,000.
Yeah, they're more. Yeah, they're more. Yeah,
right. Like
Brampton as well, I think, is another one that's more than Toronto.
I could see that, and I have the figures from Markham, 161,000. So they're going on par with their neighboring cities. But is this the way it should be? Should they all be that high? That's a question you should be asking yourself, especially for people that are dealing with higher property taxes. When your property tax last year in Toronto, I forget the number, it went up. It went like 6, 7, 8, 9%, whatever the fuck it was. And then you hear that the official number from the StatsCan inflation was 3% last year. Doesn't quite equate to that, and you're paying way more in property tax, but you're saying that it doesn't make sense. Then you got a 25% raise on top of that. I don't think I got a 25% raise, even if you add up the last 25 fucking years that I worked at. Like, so it doesn't make sense. You get this official number, and then when it comes time when people could vote on their own salary, it goes up way higher than that.
Yeah.
This is what we have to deal with. So like people out there in Toronto, and they're wondering like, why is your property tax going up again next year significantly? Portion of this has to do with salary,
for sure.
And one thing I don't think it's mentioned here, but it's going to be a trickle down effect. If they're raising the salaries of just the councilors, I would imagine the staff too are going to have to go up as well. So that's another burden. So now you just tack it on, you're just fucking more and more shit, and you got all this crumbling infrastructure. You're paying money to fucking rename Young Dundas Square. Like, what's the priorities? What are they trying to achieve? Like, what's the goals?
Yeah.
It seems like it's padding their pocketbook and
like
trying
Palestine protests every fucking corner. Can't drive, can't bike, can't go out. Drug addicts, killers, people pissing on themselves, pissing on you, shooting up needles, smoking pot. Like, it's not a livable place. And Torontonians are like maybe the most Munchausen bunch I've ever seen in my life. Just like, you're just mad you're not from Toronto. Believe me, I am not mad I'm not from Toronto.
Well, if you have to call up an ambulance, there's somebody that needs urgent care and they got to get to see a doctor ASAP, and it's fucking blocked because of some protest. And, there's not many different routes when you have one of the major arteries blocked. Like, what the fuck? And you're talking about people's lives are at risk.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Fuck. Like, just, if you're going to do something like that, like, go somewhere on the side and just do it where, it's not going to impact people to a degree. But just generally, people just don't give a shit.
Agreed.
And this shit happens. And again, it just goes back. Like, that's why it's GTFO time. Like, it's like, what's the fucking point?
I'm not saying it's like only Palestinian protesters. I think Mark.
It's everything.
Mark said it best. Like, you're a loser if you're holding a flag in the street, period, end of story. It doesn't matter what the flag is. Maybe except Canadian. But if it's any other flag, you're as much of a loser as anyone else.
It's not. I don't want to go. It's 1:35. I think that's enough.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. I'm looking forward to our election night special. Come back Wednesday. Me and Dave Bradley talking about I don't know what. I'll probably have a little bit of whiskey for that one, since Dave has been running these shows where he's like having a cigar and a whiskey in his house. I guess he just. I mean, I don't. I don't smoke, but if would I smoke in my house?
Could you start?
Maybe. I won't tell Kenzie. She'll have to find out during the show. You'll see that door fly open during the show.
When you go golfing, you don't spark one up then, right?
Oh, I always got a stogie on the golf course. Yeah.
See, I'm the only one that doesn't do that. Like, really? I have not. I just vibrate my water.
The problem is I never smoke, and also like I don't really drink that much either. I have a couple of beers on weekends. So when I go golfing, my buddies are always like, they have the fattest cigars. There's whiskey flowing. And like by the 9th hole, I'm like lightheaded and can't hit the ball straight to save my life. Right. So I don't really join us, Joey. When I say I'm not good at golf, I actually don't know. I could be good. I'm not
you might be. You got to join us, because it not only is it a good walk, but you're going to be level headed through the whole process. There's going to be no peer pressure. You could bring whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. But if you know, for all of us, we just drink our waters, and that's basically it. Or we bring our sandwiches. It's a cheap $20 to $25 typically with the walking. It's not too bad. It's like what, $5, a little bit more than $5 an hour.
I love a good sandwich too. Who doesn't like a good sandwich? I mean,
Yeah,
we're both Pisons.
sandwich or
We both love a good sandwich.
Yeah, and that's it. And you just by the end, you know, you walked about 7K or something, what the fuck it is. You're kind of exhausted because you went up and down that shit oak hill many fucking times. It's fun. And then you know, get a little bit of tan. It's not too bad. And you can walk home if you want. Actually, it's super good distance for you to
I'm
walk
leaving.
home.
This party's over. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.
We'll see you on Friday, Joey. We'll play some golf for one of these Fridays soon.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways, take care.